Hello and welcome to the History of CAD podcast. My name is Rupinder Tara and I will be your host. On this podcast, we will explore the untold stories behind the tools that shape modern engineering and design. Each episode features conversations with the pioneers of computer-aided design, the innovators who built the software, and those who worked alongside them or observed or reviewed their work.
This is the other Mickey Mantle, not the baseball player. Mickey and I knew each other at IMSI Software, where I worked on the TurboCAD division, and Mickey was a CTO. Mickey is worked on in Evans and Sutherland as the first CAD workstations. He currently is promoting a book called How to Manage Unmanageable Groups. Hopefully, I'm not a chapter in his book, but let's see. Mickey was always the voice of reason, a stable force in a tumultuous company, as it turned out. IMSI is not mentioned in the IEEE article that I used as background for this. So wondering if this was a mission by choice.
It's been a long time, my friend.
It has been. Good to see you again. Mickey, originally I'd wanted you to be on the show to talk about, it's called The History of CAD, and I talked to people who've had a lot to do with CAD, or at least are interested in
I
it.
did go up and look through your LinkedIn, see what you've been up to. So I kind of caught up on that. It's a lot of words in there, huh?
A lot of words in there, a lot of words. It's been all about words since I left IMSI. Yeah, it's been too much about words. I'm pretending to be a journalist now. I think
So yeah, and 10 links. How long did 10 links go? That's where I lost touch with you at 10 links.
when I left IMSI, I went full-time to 10 Links, which was more or less a internet signpost to CAD companies, CAD content. 10 Links had a newsletter and had a website. Most people knew it by newsletter. It's probably how you kept in touch with me, but through the newsletter, because any news about CAD, we would try to report on it. And then I went on to engineering.com, which was, and maybe still is, one of the biggest engineering software related media companies. That I left them to, they got bought out, and then I left them to do my own thing, which I should have done. I gotta say, I should have done years ago, because I only joined engineering.com to help engineers with software. And I wasn't really getting to do that at engineering.com. It was all about writing for what the advertisers wanted. So that didn't play well to me. So, but I lost track of you after IMSI, which, by the way, Vicky's not mentioned at all in this computer graphics article that I was reading about you as.
Yeah.
So is that a mission by choice or by accident?
Well, it was a brief stop. How's that?
It was, wasn't it? It was. I wondered how, especially after reading this, all you had done with other companies, how on earth did they even manage to snag you for such a inconsequential post?
It was a matter of a confluence of events.
Yeah.
First of all, I decided that I wanted to leave Broderbund, which was really right across the road almost.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the CEO that had come in. They hired a CEO his claim to fame was he was in charge of Kraft cheese.
Oh, what?
And so he considered himself a brand manager, and he knew nothing about computers. And I said, I don't think there's a future here for this company. And so I wanted to go somewhere. And the internet was just hitting. When I talked to Martin about that, I mean, that was where his focus was,
Right.
almost to a fault. And so with the international offices and everything, I thought it sounded like an interesting gig. And it was, but it's the hardest place. I've worked harder there than I worked at anywhere else in my life. And I've worked hard all my life.
At IMSI, that was the toughest stint.
It was the toughest because all these offices in Russia and India had to be up almost 24/7 for.
Yeah. And yeah, I think all your developers pretty much, except for that loose gang from South Africa, were all in the Russians, yeah.
They had a handful of others, scattered around the world, people that I got to know. And I actually thought it was a great experience
Uh,
learning about how to manage people
yeah.
overseas or not manage them, as the case may be. And
Yeah.
so I actually enjoyed the experience, but when the news came down, I was not disappointed.
Yeah. The news came down that you were leaving
Well,
MSI.
the headlines in the newspapers and everything.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was something. That company blew apart. It was like all about the internet, and I think they even wanted to change their name to have .com in it, right?
I think he tried, but it never went.
Yeah, yeah, I remember
And now the
helping.
only thing that really survives, of course, is TurboCAD is still going.
TurboCAD is still going strong. I think our friends have all left though. I don't know if Bob's still there, but yeah, Martin left. Well, I think Martin left rather quickly afterwards.
Yeah.
Bob Mayer, I think, was hanging on there for a long time, had a little office.
And
Yeah.
so was Jeff or Bob. Actually, I went down and talked to Bob about a year and a half ago
Uh,
about something else.
yeah.
And he was just retiring at that point.
Right. Yeah. I think he wanted to retire. I talked to him also, and he wanted to get out. I think so. There's nobody left there now. I think so, but it's still functioning. Still selling TurboCAD. I don't know who's.
I think soft dev is still in the works in Russia.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, that was something. All right, but yeah, it doesn't really rate a mention when you go through all of the things you've done, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I had a word limit as well. There's lots of things I didn't mention.
Yeah.
I didn't mention another one that a company you might know about, which is FormTech, is a very different kind of CAD that I was at for a year as well. That was also a good experience for me for lots of reasons, but I left there to join Pixar.
Uh, so the working hard part at IMSI, that was more or less just having to stay up around the clock, or was it an unmanageable group of people?
Well, the Russia side was great. That was no problem.
Oh, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, the management on this side. Now, tell me about your book. It's called How to Manage the Unmanageable, right? Are you talking
Yeah.
mostly about the people, or the technology changes so fast?
Well, it's all sorts of things, you know. How do you develop products without good specs, which
Uh,
happens all the time?
uh,
And of course, how do you manage herding cats?
yeah,
Which is what the title of the book started out to be, that way before it became a cliche.
uh,
My co-author and I have been working on it for a long time.
uh,
And so we published it in 2000, but been working on it since 2000. So it took a long time to percolate. But
yeah,
the whole process, we felt like there wasn't a good book out there that was like a mentor to engineering manager. And this tries to do that. Although,
uh,
quite frankly, with AI, everything is upside down.
it has turned everything upside down, hasn't it?
It
Yeah.
has.
I mean, the same
I've
way
been
that,
I've been trying to work hard
yeah,
to follow it, and it's almost impossible to follow at the pace it's going, even if you work almost full time at it. And with AI now is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. How do you manage that? And how do you actually control that? And I still haven't got my head around it. And I don't think anybody has done a good job. But there's a lesson to be learned in there, a lot of them.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's practically impossible. I know trying to cover it and just trying to cover what it's doing in our field, if I could call engineering and design software a field, that's almost impossible because it's changing so quickly. The perceptions are changing and new companies are forming and new people are getting into the act. I talked on the show. I talked to a person who was 19. He's 19. He's still in college, and he got
Mhm.
$3 million to start a AI company, CAD company. So Parth Mehta is his name, and his Makestry is the company. But can you imagine that could never have happened before? Like a 19-year-old,
Yeah.
just because he's got AI. Not just because of AI. I mean, the product has looked pretty impressive, and he's pretty impressive.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, companies are almost like forcing themselves to invest whether on very limited claims, or I don't even know if part out a business plan. The fever is upon us.
I would say.
Yeah, and very difficult to keep up. I think people in the industry can't keep up because once you're immersed in the industry, you're doing something that's very specific, and
Yeah,
somebody is doing something else that's probably going to obsolete your technology. Right? Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. But have you come away with anything that, all the initial interest and fever was all about LLMs? Have you done much to study physical AI? Because I think that's probably more applicable to design and engineering software.
No, I haven't. I've been mostly on the software side looking at it.
Yeah, that's where we see a lot of things happening because like LLMs, of course, are about language, but we have to deal with physics, the mass forces, just the fact that software, can like a robot in software can't will go right through the object that he's trying to pick up because there's no sense of mass or free,
Yeah,
and that can't happen in real life. So I mean, like, what the heck? Why can't software figure? Why can't people figure this out? And that's where physical AI is supposed to come in and take care of that. And when Jensen Huang talks about it, he says, "Oh, that's going to be great. That's going to make robotics, humanoids happen." Is the physical AI? Not,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. So it's so interesting. I mean, I thought about at one point after I left engineering.com, I figured, oh, this would be a good time to retire. But my God, there's so much happening and so much that needs to happen. You probably feel the same way. It's like this is not a good time to get out of the business. This is just the most exciting time ever I would say not since the internet happened to us, right? That this is a very exciting time. But yeah, I can totally relate to how you cannot keep up. Yeah. So besides writing and promoting your book, I don't know if you're on talk shows or anything besides this one, but are you Mickey, you've existed. I've got to say that, correct me if your perception is wrong, is behind the scenes genius behind a lot of these things that other people take credit for. I have most notably maybe Steve Jobs in Pixar, right? You were probably big part. Tell me what part you played in that technology in Pixar, and then I want to go back to talk about what you did at. Maybe you could summarize what you did at Evans and Sutherland too, because that's when you talk about history of CAD, it starts with Evans and Sutherland on their machines, right?
Yeah,
But in the history of CAD, that Steve Weisberg wrote, I'm not sure he mentions you at all.
probably not. So let me go back just even a little further. So I just
Okay.
happened to be at the University of Utah when I was started his computer graphics program. I joined in the very first year of it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it lasted more than about a year, I might add. And there are several other people in there, like Ed Catmull from Pixar, founded Pixar, and Henry Fuchs, professor now at UNC, Fred Park, professor at SAM, I believe, and lots of other people, some I worked with at AES later. And that introduced me to computer graphics. And I didn't realize how unique it was at the time, although there had been a Scientific American article about Ivan talking about that I digested, but I just didn't appreciate it as much as I should have. I appreciated it much later.
At this point, was the screen just basically like a Etch-a-Sketch, like it was just making lines and circles and that was it? That wasn't.
So they had two types of displays. They had a line drawing display driven by a CRT, so you do lines. It wasn't 3D, it was just 2D. And they actually had a Stanford mouse. I was using a mouse in 1970, long before they emerged anywhere else. And at that year, I was at the University of Utah. They were also one of the 4 nodes on the ARPANET at that time. So Utah was pretty advanced for the time. And that's partially because Ivan Sutherland was former director of ARPA. So he had all the right connections. So he went to be professor at University of Utah. And
computer revolution, kind of graphics revolution, at least started in Utah.
It did, no question about it. And so, having taken courses from Ivan and enjoyed computer graphics, my first job out of college wasn't computer graphics, although they told me it was. It was actually a user interface on a CRT with 20 lines and 80 columns. So I had to do graphics for that for a user interface, and was actually ended up being the lead programmer for a 3-acre warehousing materials handling system with very primitive robotics of the time, which would automate the retrieval and storage of parts for aircraft rework for the Navy. And so that was I learned so much there. It was like drinking from a fire hose, learning how to do disrupt handlers and control devices, acres away. And
Tell me what's that resolution again? Because I think Etch-a-Sketch has better resolution than what you just described there.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. What language were you using to create your computer graphics programs in?
Fortran and
Fortran?
assembly.
Oh, okay.
It was driven by PDP-10s.
Okay. Was C++ a thing even then?
Oh, C++ was decades later.
Oh, okay. So Fortran, I remember taking Fortran classes in school.
C, I don't think any even had broken in at that point.
ENS had a commercial workstation product at that time, or how close?
Oh yeah, we had several, and I think I put a picture in that article, showed 4 different generations of displays I worked on there.
The PS300, System 2, PS multi-picture system, PS300, PS340.
I spent a lot of years at ENS, and along with a cohort of mine, we wrote all the software for the picture systems for several years. And it was a great experience for me because I got to talk to people around the world. I went to give training courses around the world and explain computer graphics and 3D computer graphics to people around the world. And in Salt Lake City. They were based in Salt Lake City.
So you were the person actually wrote that code?
Me and another guy.
Okay. Did you ever put like an Easter egg or something in there to identify yourself, or?
Yeah, actually, my name was in all the source code.
Okay. All right.
And we kept a change list in the code, so all our changes were in there.
When you do that sort of thing, do you ever say the other Mickey Mantle?
I encountered that quite a bit.
Okay. You've had that going on. Yeah. All right. So wow. So the man behind the scenes, man behind the screen, I should say, all that Fortran code. And those are these hardware workstations that went for, I want to say $25,000, but
No, it started at 80, and that was in 1971. 73, excuse me. 1973, they were $80,000. And that was down from their original one, which was called an LDS1, kind of a play on words by Ivan, which was much more than that, but they only made a few of them. And we actually made many of these systems.
Who could afford that? Was it like DARPA, like the defense agencies, or?
Oh, yeah, but also a lot of universities with grants.
Universities grants.
As a matter of fact, the work that's been done in molecular modeling was all started on our equipment. In fact, some of the people who were deep in that field are still some of my good friends. One at the University of California, San Francisco, Tom Farron, just gave me an email last night telling me he was going to have an endowed chair named after him there. So they've been quite an impact in the world. He created a molecular modeling program, originally developed on the Evans and Sutherland systems, and later on silicon graphics and other systems, which is used across the world for doing 3D molecular modeling. And now with the AI doing some of the design, and figuring out which proteins can be folded in what direction, being able to visualize it is becoming even more important.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So was CAD an accidental use or a non-intended use?
It was one of the primary customers. We sold equipment to McDonnell Douglas, Boeing, Lockheed. I remember we sold the systems to Pratt & Whitney for doing turbine blade design.
Oh, okay. All right. So Big Arrow was using it. I want to say I first heard of Big Arrow using CATIA. Would that CATIA have been a program being used, or was that down the road a little bit?
That's down the road quite a ways.
Okay. They're using probably their own homemade software with the
It's all homemade.
Okay, graphics engines were supplied by you guys. Interesting. Right. Now, when I entered into the CAD scene, it was later, maybe 10 years, 11 years later. You said 73 was about this time. So 10 years, by that time, the workstations had gone down to 25K. That's where my memory comes in. And what was happening at Evans and Sutherland? Was it still, by 10 years later, was it still a viable company?
Oh, yeah. They
Okay.
actually had two branches, and one was much more viable than the other one. One that made the displays was called the interactive systems, and they had simulation systems, which did 3D real-time visual display systems for pilot simulation.
Oh, okay.
And those systems were very expensive. They did for other applications well. They did one for NASA shuttle arm training. They did one for the New York Harbor simulator for harbor pilots that had 5 screens around a makeup of a bridge. And it was all real-time shaded imagery.
So besides the limitations of your screen resolution, what else was challenging during this time?
Well, how to display pixels. Actually, for us, we didn't turn to raster until much later, like maybe 10 years. It was the first time we made a raster display, although Evans and Sutherland did make one of the very first video frame buffers, which was purchased by NYIT to do animation movies back there for Ed Catmull. So there were a lot of raster stuff going on, but it was mostly on the other side of the house, full of simulation systems, other than the very early ones, which were actually done with vector line drawing displays showing just lights on runways.
Okay.
But the later ones were all shaded images, full scale.
Okay. So it went from every image being vector to every image being rasterized. Okay, and there was a transition there when that happened. Why? Tell me. So sorry, this is a basic question, but tell me why raster became standard. Why it's now.
So you can kind of follow the point where it was de facto by the history of silicon graphics. So they came out with a raster display, and we poo-pooed it, of course, at Evans and Sutherland because it had jaggy lines. But of course, the cost was so much less that they became very popular. And it became one of the very first integrated workstations with graphics. And they, of course, were very successful for a while, and then they just ran out of steam.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So as a purist, you would probably value the precision, the accuracy of a line drawn from one point to the other, and they could do it. They could do a worse line, but it took less dollars to get it.
Yeah. I was a big advocate of doing that. I wasn't really doing it, but the company certainly had a elitist point of view, I think.
So,
and I don't think David Evans actually was in it for the money ever, even though it was funded by venture money from Venrock, Rockefeller money.
Right.
He really treated it more like a university and doing things that he wanted to do rather than what was the most profitable or anything like that.
So eventually, though, Evans and Sutherland, the company, adopted and embraced raster technology, right? Okay, and then was still viable, but now it had competitors. Silicon Graphics, you mentioned, Tektronix. I think by the time I came under the scene, Tektronix was also.
Tektronix was never really a 3D competitor.
Oh, okay. And I think a lot of the Intergraph, right? Intergraph came in with Clipper, the Clipper.
Yeah, they made their own hardware as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't a lot of companies who were making their own workstations to maybe compete with ENS? We had an Applicant system. I think they had their own proprietary hardware. We used the DEC as a mini, and you worked with DEC, didn't you? I think there's some mention of.
Oh yeah. We did a lot of work with DEC, but DEC never had any 3D capability.
Okay, so basically they were the computing engine, and you supplied the workstations. Okay. Yeah. You mentioned in this article I read on IEEE that was the happiest, most productive time of your life at ENS. Yeah.
It was a great time.
Well, so
I mean, I had a lot of great times, but
yeah,
it was clearly the epidemic.
yeah,
I don't know whether you know whatever happened to Evans and Sutherland, though.
tell me.
One of my cohorts and I one day went down to the local planetarium to just look around and took lunch off and went down there and I bought a star catalog book and gave it to this guy. And he went off and digitized the star catalog book and put up a 3D view of the stars. And of
Yeah.
course, by using the magnitude you could and the type of star you could approximate the distance.
Yeah.
And they went off, he and another guy there, another engineer, created a system called Digistar. And it eventually became a system from Evans and Sutherland. It took a lot of work to finally get it done. And they shipped digital planetariums. Finally bought Spitz. Do you remember Spitz? They did planetariums, planetarium domes. So integrated everything in together. And until about 2001, 2021, they were in business selling digital planetariums. And the only people in the world doing it. And were very successful. And they continue to do that today, although they were acquired in, I think it was 2021, by a company called COSM, who took their dome technology and are making they're making entertainment venues with domes, much like the Sphere in Las Vegas, but more approachable, cheaper pricing, and not as immersive, though they do some immersive works.
The Las Vegas Sphere, you must have been looking at that and remembering that.
I had to go up and see the Eagles and then went back to see the Wizard of Oz. I've been loving 3D graphics forever, so how could I not? It was, by the way, a mind-blowing experience to see the Eagles there.
That's amazing. You're like Mr. 3D graphics. Okay, now you you left there. Did you go right to Pixar after that?
A brief stop with this company called Formative Technologies
Okay.
for a year until Pixar called me. I'd actually been talking to Pixar before I left, and they weren't ready. And when they were ready, I jumped to Pixar.
Okay. I remember reading the book Jobs, and did you read it? The one by Walter Isaacson. In that book, it mentions that Jobs was famous for taking other people's ideas and then and projecting them as his own. Did that happen with you? Did anything that you behind the scenes?
Not exactly, but I did learn. I used to meet with him almost once a week. Me and the staff of Pixar would go down to Next and meet with Steve. So we'd have an hour and a half conversation with him every week. So I got to learn some of his foibles and quirks. But one of the things I noticed was that if you're in a meeting and it was kind of brainstorm meeting with Steve, you never threw out your best idea first. You always threw out a worse idea because you knew no matter what it was, he was going to change it. Okay, and then he'd follow on with that, something to that, and then it would be adopted.
Oh, really? There was a way to manage Mr. Jobs, huh?
Well, I won't say I learned how to manage him. Yeah, it was truly managing the unmanageable.
At Pixar, I recall reading in the article that you left when you realized the company was only going to do animation. Do I remember that correctly? Like I read into that it wasn't serious enough work for you. Is that what?
So to me, I like developing interesting things.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see them doing a lot more interesting things with graphics.
Yeah.
We'd already just finished the RenderMan project, and that was pretty special. But that was just more about how to make graphics as opposed to use it. Of course, I didn't realize at the time how the special effects would take over the movies, quite frankly.
Hey, tell us what RenderMan is.
Oh, RenderMan is a 3D graphic specification that it was used to create all the 3D special effects. And it was very excellently designed by a team at Pixar, very smart guys who put in a way to do exactly what you want to do by a language they call the shading language to control how each pixel would be presented at the end. So you could do all kinds of things that you wouldn't have to go back and rewrite code or anything to do it. And so it kind of drove the ability to do special effects. As a matter of fact, Pixar did the very first special effects in the world for Star Trek 3. And then that helped spur the design of and the interest of George Lucas, of course, in special effects. And that continued on. That work continued there. And then in about 1970 or 85, this RenderMan specification.
Okay. You said that special effects was kind of killing off maybe what you wanted to do. Tell me how that is, because I thought that was all computer graphics.
It is.
Okay.
It is. But somehow, I won't try to justify it, but I had a desire to be more a part of the computer industry because I felt like that was more, the animation world was more niche than that. That turned out to be much bigger than that. I couldn't see that at the time, but Disney buying Pixar was never in the back of my mind when I was there, I'll tell you.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, good. All right. So I think when you had left, what was the condition of Steve Jobs at the time? I know because he died later of liver cancer, right? Was he still?
That was decades later. It was 2011, and I left Pixar in 1991.
I would propose an idea for you, like it was about TurboCAD. You would just listen, and I found it very agreeable, right? But I didn't have to do much pitching, which was nice. And then I went off to the Russian team, visited Russia, and told them everything I wanted to do, and he went along with it just fine, right? It was like without any issues. I don't know if there was anything else you remember about that, but yeah, but everybody else, I think was didn't quite know what to make of their own products, other than let's just price it to like dollars, right? They weren't a technology company. They were like a sales company with direct marketing, right?
Clearly what Martin
Yeah.
DNA was, but it was a shock for me having come from a company who did a lot of software products, Broderbund, where I was for almost a decade, and was a very well-run company while the founders were still there, and profitable, and went public, and it was a great place to work. None of the chaos that you saw at IMSI. So if I did anything, I tried to decrease the chaos.
Yeah. It was all seemed to be the subject to. I can relate it to the times right now politically. It all had to do with the whims of one man. One creative idea by the CEO, and then everybody would jump around trying to fulfill that idea. And the last idea, I think their fatal one, was let's do internet. We're a .com now. And losing sense of, like, I thought TurboCAD was a very underrated product, diminished only by its low price. But yeah, they didn't have much interest in it, even though it was kind of their bread and butter. I remember going to Russia. I was very impressed by their technical ability, but I remember, I think it was you that might have said, I think they exist to create the next Pro E. They wanted to make really use their skills, and all we wanted to do was make a next version of TurboCAD. I had wanted to make a AutoCAD, like do everything that AutoCAD could do, but at a fraction of the price. So yeah, but I don't think either of us got a chance to do what we wanted to do at that company.
No. Like I said, I had a great learning experience.
So now, what are you doing? Promoting your book, which is second print?
I had one more major stop along the way, which was this company called Gracenote, which you probably didn't know, but I started out as a musician in a rock and roll band in high school and college. And so music was always my first love, computer graphics a second, and still is, as a matter of fact. And this company, Grace Note, which you might tell has a musical twist with a Grace Note in the name, was the first crowdsourced website in the world.
Okay. That was over in Berkeley, right? I think I saw it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. It was called
Okay.
CDDB at the time
Uh,
and changed the name to Grace Note later. And finally, they went into lots of different directions, embedded databases of content and media.
right.
I had a lot of fun. I was in charge of the entire development staff there, which was all over the world, and
Yeah.
had a great time as well. But
Yeah.
to me, it was still exciting when I go rent a car. I'll turn on Sirius XM, and they'll often come up with the album marked by Grace Note. So it's still going strong, and
Yeah. He's still making a contribution. It was was it across the street or within walking distance of Chat Cafe?
yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Right.
across the street,
Across the street. Right. I remember like, hey, I should
just
go
off
there,
Court Street.
which I love that
Yeah,
place. Every time I'd go, I'd see Grace. And I said, I should stop in and see Mickey. Wonder if he's there.
yeah, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Funny you
I
didn't
saw,
find me there. There was our lunch. That was our cafeteria.
what was that?
Yeah.
Your cafeteria was,
Well, literally, I mean, we
uh,
walked the street for lunch.
oh, I see. Yeah. We might have crossed paths there. Very interesting. All right. So, Mickey, where are you now? Where are you calling from? Are
So
you
I retired from Grace Note in 2011.
okay?
I've been retired ever since, except for this little foray I did, which is I had a passion for a line of products that we developed at Broderbund called Living Books.
Uh-huh.
I went back and I licensed the rights to those titles to the software, although they lost the source code, and re-implemented the software that would run these titles. Now, the software title content, which Broderbund had done, was all independent of the code, okay? It had all about the animations and so forth. So these are interactive children's books, which I published for iOS, Android, Mac, and Windows,
Mhm.
and did that for another 10 years, 11 years, and sold the company off 3 years ago. And I still continue to consult for the company. Sold
Okay.
to a company called Zoom Platform, which owns the rights to a lot of applications or
Uh-huh.
sell, not necessarily to develop. So they have their own store, but they also sell it on other platforms. We have distribution through people who install it on tablets to go into schools, their educational quality applications.
Okay.
And so I did that for another decade or more.
Were you actually coding? Did you?
I actually didn't code that, but I hired the key people from Broderbund who did to rebuild the code.
So back to managing teams of software developers. So is it true nowadays AI is writing all the code? Like I don't
No, it's not writing all the code, but it's
know
writing a lot of the
a
code.
lot of code, right? So
But
and this vibe coding, have you kept up with that?
yeah, I have.
Yeah.
And it's something else. I don't quite understand all the vibe,
Yeah.
but certainly you can get a lot done with one individual today.
Okay. Yeah. I had somebody
I worry about the maintainability in the long run. How do you make a product out of it? How do but if you have small enough pieces that you can parcel out, AI can do the work. You can specify.
Yeah. I had it explained to me by an executive at SolidWorks actually, and he like seemed to be almost. He gave the impression that he could on the spot create an application just by vibe coding, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. Although this was at CES, and it was very very interesting. So who knows? Maybe even a dummy like me could code with
Yeah,
that. So
I've tried a few passes at it, but
yeah.
nothing serious. Just trying to figure out how this stuff works.
Uh, uh,
Easy to do websites for sure.
yeah. So
I had a surprise thing the other day when I don't know if you noticed, but Anthropic's source code was released. They had analysis of some of the source code, and it was basically written in not a procedural language. I was shocked.
wait, what does that mean?
It,
The procedural language was written in.
his name escapes me off the top of my head, but it was basically not like C, if you will, not compiled code, but it was interpretive code.
Oh, I see. Okay, and that's unusual. I mean,
Well,
you,
for AI, I was shocked about that.
yeah, yeah. So are we at a point where AI could write its own code for the next LLM or next physical
They say
AI?
they're doing it already. That's how they're doing each new rev.
So what would you say? I don't know. If you have children or grandchildren, how would you advise them? Like, should they get into software now, or is this there was a time when it said that software was the profession. Everybody had to get into software. Software is going to eat your lunch, I think people would say, right? Is that still a thing, or is like
Well,
I learned?
I think knowing more about it than less is a good thing, but I wouldn't necessarily advise anyone to jump into just being a programmer today.
Yeah,
Okay, programming architects, there's things, but how do you get there? How do you become one of those when you're not allowed to do all the programming now? It's
yeah,
one of the challenges. There's a great article in ACM that just came out for April. It's an opinion article about how to put teams together so that you make sure you're still growing talent while you let AI do some of the heavy lifting.
yeah. How do you get the right humans in there? And all the talk we hear is you don't have to have humans. You just have a bunch of AI agents, and they're doing all your work, and
Well, I don't think that's going to work.
it's not going to work. I know.
I still think there's a place for oversight somewhere.
Yes, but how to tell young people how to counsel them and what to do, because a lot of the introductory jobs in development, they're not there anymore. It used to be like, okay, we thought they might go overseas for it, but now it's like nobody. AI is doing so much of it. Big tech is laying off programmers. It's like I don't know who's hiring anybody big who's hiring any of the big tech firms that are hiring low-level developers anymore. So,
I was studying this in some depth a little while ago. I've got an article I'm going to publish one of these days. I went back and I used Claude to take and do some analysis for me
uh,
on the job potential over the next 5 years.
right.
They're losing jobs, and this is worldwide study with 12 different countries.
Oh,
Up, where programmers are going, and it turns out that programming had one of the biggest hits of all the job categories, and there was probably 100 different job categories and 4 programming ones. And so it was a very
oh,
interesting thing. I've been going to get around to publishing. I just haven't got around to it.
oh, okay. All right. I'll look for that. Drop me a line when it gets published. That's very interesting.
I will. I
Yeah.
will.
Okay. All right. You're in Napa now? You're living in Napa?
I am. I live over in Napa. I lived
Oh,
in Marin for a long time, for
yeah.
30 years, 30 plus years. I
Uh,
moved here about 7 years ago.
oh, okay.
In
You have a
Nevada,
wife?
after I retired, my wife and I decided to plant a little vineyard in our backyard. We had enough space there to do it. And what I found was that I really didn't want to tend grapes. It's a lot of work. Growing
Yeah.
grapes is a lot of work. I'd rather be around grapes.
Uh-huh. Yeah. People don't realize it's farming. Growing grapes is farming. They have this romantic idea of being their own winemaker with grapes, and
Yeah.
so you're just consuming wine, not growing the grapes, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm even consuming less, unfortunately.
Oh no. Oh no. Okay. I hope that's your good shape, Met. Healthy? You're
Yeah,
looking healthy? Yeah. Okay. All right. Good.
happy, healthy, and traveling and doing the things we like to do. Although
Good.
still paying too close attention to what's going on in the tech world.
Yeah. Yeah. You must be if you're still subscribing to graphics journals. You're still paying attention. All right. Very good. Well, Mickey, it's been great to catch up. Glad to see you again. Been a long time.
It has, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll run into each other in person sometime, Rupinder. It's been great to talk to you.
Great talking to you too. All right. All right, Vicky.
Take care.
Have a good rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
This concludes this episode of the History of CAD podcast. Please join me in our next episode as we add to the rich history of design software. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or know someone who has stories to share, please let me know via email at rupinder@edgetechnica.com. Companies can sponsor an episode of the History of CAD. Get the details on our website, edgetechnica.com/sponsorship.